Welcome back, everyone. Episode number 10 of the Brad Burns Bridges podcast.
I'm Brad.
And I'm Bridges. Man, it was a good week for us, Brad. It was a very good week. Much needed, I would say. Both of us did pretty solid on the picks as well. I went 4 of 5, Brad 3 of 5, Switzer went 3 of 5. So nothing, Switz isn't entering the top spot, but decent weeks from us, I'd say. OU kind of let us down. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But without further ado, we are letting in another guest to the podcast. Brad, you got anything to say about this guy?
Oh, we don't have enough time to say everything, but he's been a friend of the podcast for a while now. Huge Arkansas Razorback fan. Grew up a big Steelers fan. Big football guy. Running back in high school, played for Catholic High. Um, Now works for the Little Rock Fire Department down in his hometown. And yeah, we're happy to have him on the
We're
pod.
happy to have him on the pod. I'm pretty sure he saves lives, Brad. That's all we needed to say. He saves life. But we're going to welcome our buddy B-Swag into the podcast. Welcome in, Austin.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Oh, yeah. Is that a West Virginia jersey you got on, man? That's
West
the
Virginia,
one.
Jersey.
That's the one school we left out. Brad gave you a nice little introduction saying Hog fan, Steelers fan, lifesaver, lady killer.
Catholic running back.
Yeah,
That's right, Catholic High School.
yep, for sure. But yeah, man, welcome on to the podcast. We're happy to have you. But without further ado, let's hop right into it, man. As you can see, we've all got our hog gear on. It was a huge week for the Arkansas Razorbacks. First, I want to talk about season opener in college basketball. We played last night, Alcorn State. I actually went to the game. Man, it's good to have college basketball back. With that being said, what are your expectations for this season so far? We'll start with that question. Austin, what do you think and what do you expect to see from the Arkansas Razorbacks under the Muss Bus this year?
Jake, I'd like to say that Purdue exhibition game was probably one of the best games I've seen the Razorback basketball team play in a while. As far as being the first game they've played, and it seemed like all the players play well together. That
Yep.
being said, I think Trevor Brazil is a great asset to have back, and we really saw that in that game. So
Yeah.
I think we'll be pretty good this year. I think we'll make it to the Sweet 16 at least.
At least. Nice. I like that prediction. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, yeah, to start off that hot against, debated the number one team in the country with the W, pretty impressive. Kind of outlook on the year. I mean, we don't have a terribly tough out of conference. We have Duke, obviously, that'll be an awesome matchup. SEC looks pretty, deep this year, and a lot of contenders, going for that SEC title. If you look the past 3 or 4 years, we've had a lot of success in March, with the NCAA tourney. But, till then, we kind of have struggled, with SEC regular season. We kind of, limp our way through. I would be, impressed if, Musselman can, start early, like Austin said, against Purdue, and then take the SEC title. Something he hasn't done at his time here at the school, and I think that would be a really good benchmark for him, and I would like to see that happen this year.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to take y'all for a little trip um, around the Muss Bus era of the Arkansas Razorback basketball
Let's
program.
do it.
Yeah, let's start real quick and mention the talent level that he is consistently bringing in is the highest that we've ever had, which is a huge um, boost for the hype train behind this team. But what we've seen in the past, his first year, he brings in a lot of transfers and he has a lot of young guys. He brings in Jalen Williams, Moses Moody, Devo Davis, pillars to this team that we've seen the last couple years in March. Incredible, right? But we didn't have the depth that we needed with the grad transfers. And then we pivot to last year, you know, it was kind of the opposite. We brought in a couple transfers class, but we were heavily relying on true freshmen to come in and play. And man, there were some awesome moments, but we had them playing 30 minutes a game. They're true freshmen. They're not consistent. Um, and they took us on a wild ride, and it was awesome. This year, Austin, you listening to me?
I'm
This
here. I'm
year,
listening. I'm ready.
I think this is the team that can go all the way. From what I've seen in the Purdue scrim, what I saw against Alcorn State, it's the depth. We have depth at every single
Yeah.
position. You have foul trouble with your guards, you send another one in, and we are all good. We have 6 to 7 guards that can come in and play and not miss a beat on offense. Number one, our defense is another level. Let me tell you what, those guys get after it. Tremont Mark, Devo
Yep.
Davis, give me some better defense on the wings in college ball. You just can't. Like we have it set up. But I am super pumped about this time. With that being said, Austin, you didn't really tell me much. Like what has to go our way here to like
Man,
keep to a successful season is kind of what I'm saying. Out of your eye.
yeah, I'll say this, and I'll let me first touch on our defense. Since I'm wearing the West Virginia jersey, it almost reminds me of Bob Huggins when he was a coach for West Virginia. And they called him Press Virginia, because they were so good on defense.
Yeah.
So I can see a little bit of that of uh, in Arkansas right now. And what I'll say is probably the biggest benefit this year is, and I don't know what exactly Musselman's doing to mesh these players to play so well together, but it seemed like in the previous year or two, it seemed like we had a bunch of good players, but sometimes the coordination was not there, if that makes sense. So it just seems like everything's meshing together real well so far.
Yeah.
But we're only 2 games in already. There's still a lot of season to be played. So
And you said your prediction's the Sweet 16, right?
yeah, I think the Sweet 16. I'd like for us to go all the way, but realistically, probably the Sweet 16.
Yeah. I didn't say we were going to go all the way. I said we could go all the way.
We could. We could. We have the talent, like you said.
Yeah.
As long as our players, really, as long as our players still work the ball around, keep locking down on defense and making our shots, I think we got it.
Heck yeah. Love it. Brad, what is your prediction for the year?
Prediction, like I said, I think we can win the SEC this year. Like you mentioned, we got depth. So if we have a couple injuries throughout the season, we can kind of, withstand that. And I hope we can, take home the SEC title. For March, I mean, it's hard. I mean, March is probably the most unpredictable event in sports, so it's hard to say. But I'll say I predict a strong run. Whether that's Elite Eight, Sweet 16, Final Four, hard to say, but I think we'll go pretty far, and it's a fun team.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the year that the Hogs break the Sweet 16 Elite Eight stretch in the past, and we punch our ticket to the Final Four, and we have a chance to play for it. But super stoked about the basketball season. We play at home on Friday night for our viewers, in case they were wondering. Let's pivot on. Arkansas football gets a big dub. First time in the swamp after a 6 game skid. They were underdogs, not supposed to win this game. But what are your takeaways of the offense and Kenny Guyton? We talked a lot about this last week. And are the Hogs going to be able to keep it rolling, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, super impressed with Kenny. It was cool to see the players and him after the game, embrace each other. Super positive. Haven't seen a lot of positivity out of the locker room in the past few weeks, and so anything like that is awesome for the guys. Obviously, um, my biggest takeaway from the offense was super balanced, running and passing games. Attacks were on point. Never felt like we were really stalled at any point in the game. Very consistent throughout all 4 quarters. Felt like everyone got involved, got a lot of touches. KJ was doing his thing. He felt a little more free, and kind of felt more of kind of what the KJ we've seen in the past 2 years. So yeah, super impressed. Defense let up a few more points than what we've seen over the season. But that's Florida's offense as well. They're a pretty explosive team. Graham Mertz is actually playing well,
Yeah,
which is hard for us to admit, but he's playing well, and they got some good receivers over there. So, oh, and then Trevor Etienne's also a playmaker. So, really good win. I mean, wish we could have more throughout the season, so it kind of means more. But hey, we're at 3-6, still bowl
we
eligible
are
at this
alive, I
point.
think, is the biggest takeaway from this game. We're alive.
Yeah.
We're
So
barely breathing, but we're alive. Yeah.
we have something to play for, so it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin?
I'll say this. I think so. I only caught half the game. Um, I was out of town for the weekend, but I caught the whole second half. And what I would say is it looked like the Razorbacks had a lot of energy that they didn't have before. And I mean that comes with losing games, but I think that it's very beneficial to promote within the organization. So like it seemed like they all liked Kenny. So for them to rally around him and like try to, make him look good and keep him in that position, I think they really played for him and themselves. So what I'd like to say is too, how about karma with Mizzou, or I'm sorry, with Florida missing that um, field goal there at the end? I thought that was huge because what didn't make sense to me was why there wasn't a 10-second runoff there at the end after they placed the ball for the first down.
Yeah.
So that should have sent the game into overtime, I believe. I really wasn't understanding the explanation that the SEC refs were making. But then again, we pulled it off at the end. So it, like KJ did look really good. He looked pretty calm and was able to make some pretty good passes. So,
Yeah. I think this is I agree with you. With the energy was really good, and that's really what you want to see. The videos after,
yeah,
everything's great. I will say, um, KJ's been taking a lot of heat, and I think that this was his day. He kind of came out and said, when you need me, I'm here. And I think the guys rallied around Kenny. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the prettiest game that I've ever watched. I was watching a lot of those offensive possessions, and I was like, man, it just doesn't seem like we put up 480 yards and
right.
200 on both sides, have a 100-yard receiver, 100-yard rusher. But let me say, I'm very impressed with the guy with Kenny Guyton. I think that it's awesome to promote within, like you said, and give someone an opportunity, someone that the players obviously can build around, and just everyone wants to be there for the guy. How about winning a one possession ball game though? I mean, this is something that we have not been able to do for multiple years. It was just an awesome week because I went into that game not expecting much, and it's awesome to have a chance to play for bowl eligibility still. Because you drop that game and go to 2-7, it's tough watching those last couple. But we're at least hopefully we can get it done against Auburn this weekend and keep the train rolling and come in. Obviously beat FIU, and picture perfect scenario would be 5-6 going up against Missouri. Um,
Jake, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen at that Missouri game? Do you think we'll be able to pull it off? Because I watched the
I
Missouri
think
game this weekend, and they looked pretty
Missouri
good.
is very good. Um, I think it's two different tales, man. I think if you're sitting there and you're 5-7 or 4-6 or whatever you're going to be
Yeah,
going 4-7 going into that game, then you lose that game. I think if you're 5-6, you got a lot to play for, and I think there could be two totally different outcomes from that game in particular. But I'm not even worried about that. I'm worried about Auburn this weekend. Nothing
yeah.
matters if we can't get there. So I think the guys are going to be locked in. The defense is playing good ball. So we'll see. Brad, you got anything else on Kenny Guy and the Hogs?
No, I guess with the Missouri game, they don't have much to play for. Um, SEC East is kind of wrapped up with Georgia winning this weekend. So yeah, if we can get into that game 5-6, and let's say they're 9-2, 8-3, I like our chances. Kind of with the motivation to keep the season going.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have anything on that?
Hey, I'll say one thing nice about Missouri is man, their kicker Mevis, he might be. I like. We have a good kicker with Cade Little, but when he sank that against K State for the longest
Yeah,
field
that
goal,
was
man,
that was
that was
incredible.
that was awesome.
Hey, well, let's move on. College football, let's stay in it, man. OU drops two in a row for our buddy Jackson Scott. This is an absolute heartbreaker. I was with him this week. I actually watched the Sooners lose with him, and let me say, he was not a happy camper. Man, the rematch with Texas kind of looks way up in the air with Oklahoma State kind of taking the reins on that. Texas escaping K State, which was a tough game. We kind of called that one right. Brad, you kind of drew that one up perfect, saying that you never know what you're going to get with those Kansas teams. I kind of want to pivot off this question here, I think, and I want to kind of bring up. Actually, never mind. I just totally forgot what I was going to say. But potential rematch with Texas. I mean, is it totally out of the cards, or you know, is there a way that they sneak their way back in there?
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, Oklahoma State's in the front running to head to Dallas for the Big 12 championship with Texas. They're a game up on Oklahoma, and a game, yeah, and they hold the tiebreaker obviously for head to head. And their three remaining games are Houston, who's 4-5, UCF, who's 4-5, and BYU, who's 5-4. So I'm chalking in the Cowboys versus UT Big 12 championship. A good matchup. They haven't played all year, so it's a new matchup in the Big 12, and I think it'll be a good game. But I think Texas takes that pretty easily.
Yep. Austin?
Man, I would agree with Brady on that, but I would also say we'll go to OU. I think this will be a big game for West Virginia if they come off and come out swinging, beat OU because OU's 17 right now, I believe.
Yep.
And so, and then again, West Virginia has a pretty good football team right now, and I'm interested to see what they bring to the table on Saturday. And I'll say their head coach Neil Brown. I didn't really know much about him, but he seems to be a pretty good coach, and West Virginia's rolling along this year. So I'm excited for that game. So
Yeah, 6-3. Didn't realize.
Yeah, I didn't
yeah.
realize that either. I
Hey,
remember. Yeah, I remember. What were we saying, Austin?
I'll say this. I don't know if anybody saw the it was Houston versus WVU, and Houston's coach is West Virginia's old coach. So it was a pretty big game, and they Houston won on a last minute Hail Mary to win the game.
No
And
way.
so it was not. I mean, they won it fair and square, but West Virginia was almost 7-2, so
Wow.
almost. But I mean, then again, Houston won, so we'll
Yeah.
give them credit. But
Well, back to this OU Oklahoma State rivalry. Bedlam last year. It is one of the very big college football games, obviously in the Big 12, but it's kind of a national attraction too. For one of these games, do you have any feelings about this being done? Because I know a lot of Oklahoma State fans in particular. I think Oklahoma might not try to be brushing it off a little bit like it doesn't matter as much to them. But man, did you see the passion of those fans when they were storming that field? I saw videos on Twitter of fans running around like hyping up, like looking into the crowd. Man, that was like their Christmas. I think it sucks for Oklahoma State. I just don't know how much OU really, really, really cares about that rivalry game with this opportunity in front of them. With that being said, are y'all kind of on the same page with that, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can open up a broader discussion with just all of the realignment in college football and just all the rivalries that are going to get lost. Oregon State, Oregon, the Civil War, um, you know, Washington State. There's a lot that you can look at. UT and all the Texas schools. So it's just like it's a little kind of nostalgic, but then again, you get all these new matchups that are going to be super exciting, and kind of gives college football some fresh life.
Yeah, I agree. Well, with that being said, let's move on to what feels like our favorite team to talk about. The University of Southern California Trojans. They drop another game. They make a coaching change though. They get rid of their defensive coordinator. will they be able to right the ship? Like the season, obviously they're not playoff bound or anything, but can they end winning some games, or are they just going to end up completely wasting a season with one of the best quarterbacks, quarterback prospects ever in Caleb Williams? Austin, you want to take it?
Man, I don't know too much about this as y'all do, but I will say this. For them to make that coaching change like they did after losing those 2 games with a great quarterback, I do think that there's potential for them to at least win 1, 2 more games. Probably not all of them, but with a quarterback like that, there's always hope for their season still. So it'll be interesting, just like how we had a coaching change and end up pulling off in Florida. So
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
see.
Brad, I'll let you take this one. I know that you're a very passionate USC Trojan fan.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, midseason coaching changes are never, clean or whatnot. But it felt necessary. I mean, Alex Grinch was not delivering as defensive coordinator for the Trojans. Honestly, pathetic output from his defenses. Really not much to put other than that. Um, like Caleb Williams' theatrics after the game on the sidelines were kind of concerning, crying into his mom's arms,
What was the
pouting.
statement? Yeah, what was the statement? Like he just wants to go home, cuddle with his
That was like
dog,
in his presser. Yeah, he wants
yeah,
to go home, cry with his dog, and
watch
cuddle.
TV or
So I
something.
would not be surprised. I haven't heard anything up until this game, but I mean, we've seen high level college prospects, declare for the draft before the bowl game. I wouldn't be surprised if he declares, even before that. I mean, with what 3 losses on the season, 2 losses in the Pac-12, with a deep Pac-12, they're not making the championship game. I mean, what are we playing for at this point? And so he's the unanimous number 1 pick. Why risk injury? I mean, the book is written on Caleb Williams and USC. I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here's kind of my thought process. I'm going to bring this back to Arkansas here because we just experienced an OC change. You see guys, you know, just really obviously appreciate and look up to Kenny Guiton and want him to succeed. And the offense comes out and it's almost a complete 180. Um, USC has never had any problems recruiting talent. They have plenty of defensive like studs on their roster and recruits. What if Alex Grinch's scheme is just horrible, kind of like Dan Enos, and they come out and they're able to play well, and everyone's like, "Holy smokes, what could have been?" Because they didn't need to, you know, go out and they don't need to hold people to 14 points to win games. Like Caleb Williams is so talented and that offense is so good that if they can hold their opponent to 24, 25 in that realm, they're pretty much going to win every game that they're in. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see going forward. I don't expect them to come out and just everything, all the problems are fixed. But my buddy Jackson Scott, who's a huge USC Trojan fan, was showing me a video of Alex Grinch on the sideline of that game, the Washington game, and the players weren't even listening to him. Like he's trying to bring it up in the middle, trying to coach people. Players aren't even looking at him. No one even puts their hand up in the middle to break the huddle. I mean, it was getting ugly there. A change had to be made. So I think it's a wasted season for Caleb Williams. Put it there, pal. But yeah, I think it's tough being a fan, and I do agree with you. If there's not much to play for, why does Caleb Williams play when he's going to be drafted number 1 overall anyway? Um, let's pivot away from the Trojans. It's sad. We love talking about them, but Georgia escapes. They play a close game against Missouri. You brought that up, Austin. Missouri looks good. Georgia wins at home by 9 points, while Alabama dominates. And they pick up a big win against LSU at home. Which team do you have more faith in to wrap up the SEC at this point? Because obviously Georgia's dealing with some injuries. They don't look the best. And then Alabama just, ever since that Arkansas game, they've just looked great. With that being said, Austin, you got anything on that?
I'll say this for the I actually did. I was able to watch some of the Georgia and Missouri game this weekend, and I actually watched it at Barstool Bar in Nashville, which is pretty cool. And
Super dope.
I'll tell you this: the coolest part is, even though I'm not a Mizzou fan, there were hundreds of Mizzou college students at that bar, and so everyone there was wearing Mizzou jerseys. Okay, it's just a sea of yellow, and they were electric for this game. So, man, with the students going as crazy about that game as the team seemed to be, because they were in it most of the time for being a huge team like Georgia that they were playing. I don't know, man. Mizzou surprised me. So that's all I'll say. I mean, of course, Georgia is a powerhouse, but for Mizzou to be in it like that, I will say this: Eli Drinkwitz, I wasn't a huge fan of him, but I think he really backs his players. So since he has them rallied around him, that's a huge plus. So they're
I
doing
just
good things at Mizzou. And
I
my
kind
boy
of hate how
Beavis
passionate
sending
you
it
are
home.
about Missouri. Like I hate
Huh?
how passionate you are about Missouri. You went to school at Arkansas.
I'm not even. That's the thing. I'm not passionate about it. It was just crazy being there with a billion Missouri fans out of nowhere. Like, what are the odds that they took over the Barstool Bar in Nashville for the Missouri Georgia game? They all went
It
down there
kind of
for the
sounds
game.
like you were looking for them.
I wasn't.
You've been
They
all
just
about
happened to be
Missouri
there.
this whole podcast. I'm just messing with you. But really, who do you think's going to win
You
the
didn't
SEC?
answer the question.
Yeah, who do you think's going to win the SEC? Austin?
I think. You know what? I think Alabama might, and I wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the season, but as the season progresses, I think that they might because Nick Saban's just such a good coach, and they have a lot of talent, and I would say that they've improved a lot over the season, so they might. They always seem to surprise me. So we'll see what
Awesome.
happens.
Heck yeah, Brad.
Yeah, Georgia's kind of been limping through the regular season, a little bit surprising. They've had some injuries, like you mentioned. I'm excited for this weekend with their matchup against Ole Miss. I think we're going to learn a lot about their team. Ole Miss is looking really good. Jackson Dart's been slinging it. Lane Kiffin is, offensive guru. So they're going to put pressure on that defense. It'll be interesting if they can hold up against the Rebels. At this point, though, I'm sticking with the Bulldogs. 2 back-to-back reigning national champs. That's where I'll put my faith at this point. Alabama looks good, I will say, but still have some questions on Jalen Milroe. When he got into some trouble against LSU, he always used his legs. I would like to see him, throw out of the trouble sometimes,
Yeah,
because against really good defenses like Georgia, like they're gonna clog up those running lanes, and so you got to be able to use your arm at some point. So yeah, at this point, I'm still going the Bulldogs, but it's closer than a lot of people thought.
yeah,
If you go back to the Texas loss and early in the year.
for sure. 9 minute warning, by the way, guys. Brad, I agree with you. I'm still going to lean Georgia. I think Missouri is very good. I think Missouri is better at this point in the year than LSU is. Um, even though
They played
LSU,
head to head
yeah, I know that they played head to head, but I'm saying,
at Mizzou.
yeah, I think at this point in the year, 3 weeks later, Missouri is a better football team than the LSU Tigers. I think that
Yep.
LSU is kind of crumbling down there with Brian Kelly. I think that there's a lot of questions being arise, or a lot of question has arose, whatever it is. But I think that Missouri's a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Um, but no, man, I think it's very close. I think Alabama is really hitting their stride. So I'm gonna lean the Bulldogs, but that could be different next week depending on the product we see on the field this weekend. So,
Yep.
with that being said, let's move into our last topic. We got like 3 minutes to talk about this, and then we got to hop straight into the picks. But Brad, this one's for
Be
you.
quick.
Iowa wins, but it's very ugly. They barely put up 10-7, I believe, is the final score. How confident are you in them being able to pull out their division after seeing that?
Well, division pretty confident. I think they have a game up on everyone. except Minnesota. Minnesota still has to play Ohio State, I think. Our strength of schedule going forward is pretty weak. But other than that, just like confidence in the team, there's not much. Offense looks the worst it's ever been, which is insane to say. Defense, I would say, is not as strong as it was last year. So, I mean, I don't know what that formula is, but it's not winning Big Ten championships.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, Big Ten West is such a clusterfuck right now. So, I mean, we can still come up on top, but it's not gonna matter much in Indianapolis. So,
Yeah.
it's been a roller coaster, but hopefully throughout the off season, transfer portal, got a decent recruiting class next year. We can start building a new offense, whatever that entails. But we'll see.
We'll see. All right. I want to get y'all's 2 minutes. And
Yep.
I just want to hear what's your opinion on the Michigan stuff because obviously sign stealing stuff is what all people are talking about. I really don't want to go into if they did it or not. I just want to kind of go into what should happen to Michigan if they are found guilty. They're obviously one of the best college football teams in the nation this year. So, real quick, like 15, 20-second pitch, if you were in charge of giving that disciplinary action, what would you do? We'll start with you, Austin.
Okay. I would probably, in this game, it'd be terrible, but I would probably have to, I don't know. I
Quick.
think,
Wait, what? Just say
I don't
something.
know. I don't know because all teams do it to an extent. You know what I mean? They're just doing it more right now. And Colin Cowherd was saying that. So I think
Would you
a
suspend
suspension.
them from
I
the
think a
playoff?
suspension would have to come.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they would be suspended from the playoff.
Yep.
Perfect. Brad?
Definitely no suspensions this year. Waiting till next year. Nothing. No suspensions for any type of player on the team. Only coaches involved. And I'm keeping it a max of 2 games.
Yeah. I think coaches involved need to have some repercussion. And I think that they should be suspended from the college football playoff if they are found guilty this year.
That is
Because
insane.
here's the thing.
That would be.
I don't
It
think
would be
it's that big
crazy,
of a deal. I don't think
but
it's that big of a deal, but I do think that if you have been cheating and you are caught cheating and breaking the rules, then you should not be allowed to go to one of the biggest event in college football for the entire year when you're known like caught cheating. It's just not right in my opinion. But I'm glad that we were able to talk about it. Let's move right into our picks. Austin,
hey,
5 of 5. What?
can I say? I'm gonna say two things. It'll take 20 seconds.
Well,
One
we
thing
got
is
4 minutes and 40, so let's go.
shout out to Josh Dobbs for not playing for the Vikings and coming in and helping them win that game. That was very impressive. Number two is T.J. Watt, Defensive Player of the Year.
I like it.
All right,
Josh Dobbs was elite.
let's go.
You got to go 5 of 5. All right, 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay,
Brad, we said our totals earlier, so here we go. I'm going to start it with you, Austin. Auburn at Arkansas. Arkansas is at home. They're -2.5. Who you got?
Arkansas.
-2.5. Brad.
Hogs.
I'm riding the Hogs too. I think that we've got some momentum. We come out. We don't like how we played at home last. I think Arkansas -2. Talking about Big Blue, Michigan at Penn State. Michigan's -4.5. Brad.
I would take Big Blue if it was -15. I think it's going to be a blowout. Not impressed with Penn State and how they performed against Ohio State. Drew Aller looked super uncomfortable. He showed that he was a true freshman in that game, and I think he'll show it again this game. I'm taking Michigan.
I'm taking Michigan as well, -4.5. Austin.
Michigan across the board.
All right. Tennessee at Missouri. Tennessee's -1.5. I don't think Missouri drops two in a row. They're playing at home. This is trappy with the thing or with the line already. I'm just gonna go ahead and go with my gut and say Missouri -1 or +1.5. Austin.
Yep. Mizzou.
I could have guessed that. Brad.
I'm There's some question marks on Tennessee's QB situation. I'm not sure if Milton's healthy. Nico looked decent, but yeah, I'm going Mizzou as well.
We are going to throw a wrench in the plan. We usually pick spreads. We are going to guess an Iowa game, and I think the only way to make this interesting is to guess the total points of the game. It is at 28 and a half. Rutgers is visiting the Hawkeyes. Brad, please take it away.
Oh, I'm going against my better judgment, but I'm going the over in this game. The offense is going to figure it out. Rutgers actually has a decent offense. They looked, adequate against the Buckeyes last weekend. Give me the over. It's going to be close, but
For the
they'll hit
sake
it.
of having different picks, I'm going the under. I do think the over is going to hit here, but I am going to go the under. Austin.
The under.
All right, sweet. Last pick, game day. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Ole Miss at Georgia. UGA is minus 10 and a half. Austin.
I think I'm gonna go with Ole Miss on this one with the over.
Ole Miss plus 10 and a half.
Yep.
I agree. I think Ole Miss. I like Jackson Dart right now. Georgia, keeps winning, but they're keeping it close. I think this is a similar game in that matter. Give me Ole Miss plus 10.5.
Give me the dogs, baby. I think the dogs bounce back. I'm kind of concerned with that.
Bounce back. They just won.
I know, but they get a dominant win at home. They don't scrape by. They prove that they're the best team in the SEC this week, and they win by two tutties against Ole Miss, team that struggled against A&M last week. They pushed on the total over under or the spread. So I think the Bulldogs get it done at home. And for the sake of having some different picks, Brad. But yeah, that wraps us up for episode 10 of the Brad Burns Bridges podcast. We're under a minute. Is there anything you want to say before you go, B Swag? Maybe like
Oh,
go Tigers or something?
oh yeah. No, only a woo pig. But thanks for having me on here. So it
Absolutely,
was a
man. It was a
blast.
blast. It was a blast, man. Good to have you, Brad. Thanks again for doing it. As always, guys, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're interested on coming on, leave a comment. We'll see you next week.